no, I think I'm looking a little too icy here with my Winter Wonderland fantasy look. Hey, hi, it's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with the Fingerdoo review of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 14, Episode 5. But before we get started, I've got to thank this week's Tipperdoo, Heidi North, aka Brick Sloth on the tubes. Thanks, doll. Glad to hear you're doing well, and say hi to your grandfather for me. He knows why, seriously. I've also got to apologize to Jamie, for me forgetting to put his name in the credits. Sometimes I get caught up in the drama and I forget to cross my dots. So why is Jay so special that his name's in the credits, you ask? Well, he's part of the Fingerdoo family on Patreon, where my diva, princess, and queen tiers get their names in the credits. If you want more info on how to support my channel through Patreon, the link to that is down in the bottom as well. Sounds dirty. I also want to send a big hello and how you doing to Michael Bergantino, who's just gotten out of the hospital. He's doing well. There was a collapsed lung situation before he was released, but he's doing well and managing the pain with the help of his good friend and roommate, Rodney. Michael sends his best to everyone who sent their love and to those who were able to help him raise money for his surgery. You really are the best people out there. I want to thank you all personally for helping support Michael as well. And here's to you. We don't have a cocktail, Jorge. I guess that's your cue. Jorge, drink me so I can toast Michael. Oh, what is this? Oh, it's my blue gin. Oh, from Australia. Ooh. It's like a blue gin slushy, which was my drag queen name in high school. But seriously, here's to Michael. Take your time getting well, but I hope that it's a speedy and, well, basically effortless recovery. Seriously. Okay, we started this episode off with the queen saying goodbye to Alyssa, and of course, they were all gagged, but not enough to congratulate Carrie, who is getting emotional over the judges not seeing her as a strong player. So she let Scary Carrie out of the bag and took it out on that mirror. I'm so serious. Of course, Angie needed congratulating, but something tells me she was happier about winning the $5,000. I loved her saying that's the most she's ever had at one time before. Girl, I know the feeling, seriously. That money and win for Angie seemed to be the kick in the padded butt Bosco needed. She realized that she had to step it up. Again! Let's hope it works for her this time, seriously. Cornbread was dealing with all her feels. Being in the bottom 2 weeks in a row obviously was starting to chip away at her confidence, poor thing. Of course, all the queens want to win. That's why they're there. But as the queens de-dragged, LC proved she wants to win so much that she had her sparkly spanky pants on, just in case a lip sync broke out then and there. Well, fortune favors the prepared, I'm just going to say. Where are my sparkly spanky pants? Take those off. The next day, the queens were collected in the workroom and, well, Cornbread wasn't there. Rue arrived to share a video message from Cornbread. Apparently, she hurt her ankle and was bowing out of the race. Everyone was shocked, but not as shocked as me. To be honest, I'm not sure that I believe Cornbread's ankle story because she seemed to be struggling with bigger demons since entering that workroom. That said, Cornbread had a few personal messages for Carrie, Jasmine, and Willow, who was particularly emotional hearing the news. And with that, the age of Cornbread was done. In other news, Cornbread didn't have the gold chocolate bar. She also wasn't invited back for season 15. Victoria Scone much? So, what does Cornbread's exit mean? Bring back Alyssa? No. Actually, Rue called on the pit crew for some dirty balloon popping. And that's a total euphemism. Hell, my balloons popped just hearing about it. The queens had to pop balloons tied to the pit crew like bum bags, you heard me, without using their hands, to see what color confetti was inside. The color of the confetti would determine what team the queens would be on for the Maxi Challenge. Ooh, exciting. From the looks of how eager those queens seemed to be to get popping, I'd have been worried if I were Bruno or Bryce. Especially Bryce. I'll bet it's been a while since that straight ginger got popped. I mean, it's got to be college at least. For the most part, those queens got right in there and popped those balloons. A few of the queens had to take a couple of goes before their balloons popped, but I think that was a strategy to prolong the process, which I think is smart because Prolong the Process was the name of my fringe play. The highlight of the Pop Fest was when the two straight boys, Maddie and Bryce, got to poppin'. Clearly a gentle lover, Maddie took 2 goes to pop Bryce. Bryce seemed okay with that. Willow popped her balloon on the side, and poor petite Georges, who clearly weighs less than the balloon, sounded like a squeaky bed as she tried to pop hers. Finally, after 10 or more tries, she went with her strength. And by strength, I mean her butt. Take that balloon. Seriously. So, with the queens divided into 3 teams, Deja, Carrie, Angie, and Georges on the orange team, Lady Camden, Diabetti, and Bosco on the green team, and Maddie, Willow, Jasmine, and Orion on the purple team, it was time for the Maxi Challenge. And for that, Ru brought back 3 queens who were eliminated in their first season. Tempest du Jour from season 7 was the first queen to walk into the workroom, wearing the same shirt that Dia had been wearing in her confessionals, I might add, which I thought was appropriate because technically, wasn't Dia eliminated her first week too? James Mansfield from season 9 was next, and thankfully, she left her puppet at home. Not like that. Season 13's Kimora Hall was last into the workroom, and apparently, everyone was rooting for her. For this week's Maxi Challenge, the queens would have to create a PSA for the Save a Queen organization in support of queens who were given the pork chop. Team Orange got Tempest, Team Purple got James, and that left Kimora for Team Green. Without delay, the queens broke into their teams with their eliminated queens and got down to writing a rhyming, heartfelt commercial. You know, the huge. Team Orange struck gold with Tempest because not only did she have some great ideas, but after the ageism she suffered from Candy Ho out of the gate on season 7, she also had a great backstory for the queens to draw on. Because she's old. Georges, well, was worried again. This is her second Maxi Challenge that's challenging her, and it's the second time that she needed to write something. I'm guessing writing isn't her friend. Not surprisingly, James Mansfield wasn't proving to be much help to Team Purple. They kept shooting down her ideas. Luckily, they had Maddie, who was peppering their ice with some great ideas, but she was even able to incorporate some of James's ideas, which James seemed to appreciate. Way to suck up, Maddie. Seriously. In other news, Orion was no help at all. That's when RuPaul popped in to visit the queens. Up first, Kimora and the green team. It was hilarious to hear that Kimora still can't read her infamous line right, and a great source of inspiration for the other queens. Speaking of, Ru pointed out that none of the green queens had been in the top yet, and what were they going to do about it? Bosco was so upset by Ru's comment, I think she threw up a little. Bless. Team Purple was up next. James talked about how good her life has been post-Drag Race. Hell, she even starred in The Bee Who Stole Christmas, which I'm sure Ru doesn't remember because, well, she was green screened into it. Ru asked Orion how she was going to make this fun, and true to form, Orion had no idea, poor thing. This seemed to worry Willow, but at least she understood what Ru was looking for. Be funny. Should be easy, no? Finally, Ru visited the orange team. They were going to draw heavily on the fact that Tempest is old. Ru asked Georges how she was going to bring some of her fire on the runway to this challenge. Well, for me, Fire on the Runway was my drag queen name in high school. I mean, it explains why everyone was always trying to put me out. Georges' plan for action was to be ditzier and cutesier. Me too. But to be honest, after hearing how Georges' friends kid her, it sounds like they've psyched her out of acting altogether. Nice friends. And then it was time to film their PSAs with Michelle, who wasn't directing the queens. She was just there to advise and help. Team Orange started with filming their lines to camera, and, probably to get it over with, Georges went first. There were two problems with Georges' line read, and they were eyelashes. She wasn't wearing any. I feel like that's what's holding her back and keeping her from finishing her lines to the music. Well, that and the fact that she used all the words to write her script. Could have left 2 or 3 out. And Georges wasn't the only one who struggled. Deja couldn't seem to remember her lines, but after a failed vocal relaxation exercise from Michelle, she got through it. Angie had a rough start too, but once she got out of her head, she got it together. And let me tell you, that face was worth the wait. Give that queen a sitcom. Seriously. And Carrie was still struggling with ugly, but she seemed to be letting it get the upper hand, at least. As ugly as she was, and it must have killed her to wear that wig. That said, Carrie's taping went very well. Who's ugly now? Team Green's hook was to try to get Kimora ready in less than 7 hours, and it looked like Bosco was the unofficial ringleader, moving the queens quickly through their scripts. As they recorded their lines, Lady Camden was a little too demure out of the gate and needed to be told to sing out, Louise. Bosco's bad girl character may have been a little too edgy for her teammates, but who cares? Michelle thought she did well enough to move on. Daya was another one who didn't suck, so she was a good act to wrap it up with. Team Purple arrived on set in their best newscaster weather girl outfits. Well, everyone except for Orion, who looked like she was married to the mob. My apologies to the mob. As far as line readings go, everyone did very well except for Jasmine, who got caught up in the rhythm of her lines. I guess Gloria Estefan and the Miami Sound Machine were right. Eventually, the rhythm is gonna get you. And then it was Elimination Day. As the queens got ready for the runway, they compared notes on, well, how well their filming went. Georges seemed to be the only one who told the truth about her struggle bus almost going off the road. As for the rest of the queens, in their minds, they were all going to be nominated for Emmys. Jasmine was worried, and Orion was okay with that. Surprisingly, she felt really good about her performance. I guess ignorance really is bliss. Jasmine and Georges talked about their early days of drag. Georges, if you can believe it, was only 16 and had to have her parents there for her to work in a bar. I was surprised that Georges not only talked to them about it, but that they went to the bar so she could work. And then I saw their picture, and they're obviously the coolest people in the world. Here's to Georges and her family, seriously. Willow shared information about her struggle with cystinosis and how at 26 she should be feeling in the prime of her life, but instead her body is falling apart around her. That's the reason she wants to leave her mark on Drag Race and the world. Here's to Willow, bless her. And then it was time for the runway. Rue looked stunning in her Nude Illusion floral floor length. Michelle was ravishing in red, while Ross Matthews was glittering in gold. And joining them on the judges panel, singer Ava Max. Category is Spring Has Sprung. Georges looked glorious in her little mint corset dress with that marabou shrug. Seriously, if they were casting for a new Tinkerbell, I think Georges would win. Tinkerbell doesn't talk, right? Still, Fingerdoo for Georges. Carrie Colby was a surprise in her floral bouquet number. I was wondering what she was doing in the workroom when she was painting little flowers on her face. This was a fun look for Carrie, but now that I see it, I wish she had painted one big flower on her face. Still, I gave this look a Fingerdoo as well. Angie was serving Cardi B realness in a yellow strapless with a floor-length skirt of flowers. I liked the look, but I think the weight of the skirt was throwing the rest of the dress off. It didn't seem to fit her very well, but it fit her enough to get a Fingerdoo from me. Just saying. Deja looked okay in her lavender bunny look. I'm still not sure if pants made the outfit look less glamorous than a skirt would have. I didn't hate the pants, but I didn't love them either. Also, her bunny mask looked like she just rescued it from the trash. It was all crumpled. So sadly, I have to give Deja a Fingerdoo. Ugh, I didn't want to. Keeping with her love of conceptual costumes, Maddie's little rain cloud was lovely. The one thing about a fringe dress like that is it really hides Maddie's lackadaisical walk, so I gave her a Fingerdoo. But she got to work on that walk. Jasmine looked like poison ivy if she were a Vegas showgirl, and I was more than okay with that. Fingerdoo for Jasmine. The best thing about Orion's flirty Easter bunny was her figure. That queen really knows how to pad. Fingerdoo for Orion. I wasn't sure what I was looking at when Willow came down the runway, but when she called the look Little House on the Ferry, I lost my mind. And then I read the help on the back of the house. It was Fingerdoo City and Willow was the mayor. Seriously. Dia Betty was breathtaking as a butterfly nymph. God, that queen is all legs, eh? No wonder she's 12 feet tall. My only wish was that the outfit was in a more spring-like color as opposed to coral. Still, I totally gave that giant nymph a Fingerdoo. You heard me. Lady Camden was dressed like high tea in springtime. It was a very costumey look, but Elsie sold the hell out of it and looked cute while she did it. So how could I not give her a Fingerdoo? I loved Bosco's rain cloud into a sunny day look, especially since both looks weren't literal. And her transition from one to the other was effortless. See, JDJK? That's how you do it. Fingerdoo for Bosco. The pork choppers were there too. Tempest du Jour was dressed as Nora Desmond and looked fantastic. James took my breath away in his pink fantasy, and Kimura stayed on brand by wearing a Bob Mackie original from his last ever fashion show down the runway. I love the color, I love the simplicity, and I love Kimura in it. Seriously. And then it was time for the PSAs. For the most part, I didn't hate these. Yes, there were queens who struggled like Orion, Jasmine, and Georges, and yes, there were queens who did a little better than the others, like Angie, Lady Camden, and Bosco, but the editing was everyone's friend, and having the PSA run through all three teams at once instead of one PSA per team helped to move everything along. My favorite part was the surprise cameo by Sarah McLachlan herself. That girl is building a mystery. No, seriously, she's working on a new album. You go, Sarah! And then it was time for the judges' critiques. Carrie, Deja, Maddie, Willow, and Dia were all safe, so they frigged the hell off out of there. Up first was Georges, and her runway was a hit with everyone, including Ava, but Michelle thought she didn't do herself any favors by putting so many words into her lines. Ru wanted to know why she didn't wear eyelashes. Georges said she wanted to serve bland regular white woman fish. Sounds delicious. Angie was up next, and right away Ross said he didn't like the fit of her runway around the bust, but everyone loved what she did in the challenge, and Ruth thought her script was so well written that she asked Angie if she was a poet and didn't know it. The answer is no. Jasmine's runway was a huge hit, especially with Ava Max, who said that she would wear it herself in a show. It was clear that Jasmine struggled with the challenge, but Ru told her she looked like a young Alyssa Hunter. Wait, do you hear that? I think that's the sound of Alyssa slashing Ru's tires in the parking lot. Although Orion's look wasn't very spring-like to Ross, he still loved her figure in it. Michelle thought there wasn't any energy in her voice, so, well, she came off boring in the challenge, which I think is code for high. Ross just loved Lady Camden, both on the runway and in the challenge, and everyone agreed. This was a good week for LC, seriously. Bosco was next, and Michelle thought she was the only one who did actual poetry, which helped her stand out. And everyone agreed that her runway was magical. This is a good week for Bosco, too. Then the queens frigged off to the Untucked lounge. This was an emotional lounge this week. Dia, although grateful for being safe, was starting to get frustrated at not getting critiques from the judges. Speaking of frustrated, Carrie was also feeling like her efforts to ugly things up wasn't being appreciated by the judges. Maddie thought Willow was going to be in the top this week, while Willow was grateful that they weren't judged as teams because she felt the rest of her team was in the bottom and that would have pulled her down there too. Deja liked that they were being judged individually as well because it meant that no one was getting a free pass. Dia was surprised that Maddie wasn't in the top because, well, she's been turning out the looks and been a good leader for her teams, which, of course, Maddie appreciated hearing. But Dia wasn't finished. She also felt that she was turning it out too but being safe was frustrating her. No. Deja was clearly frustrated by it all too, because she seemed to take it personally that no one asked her how she was doing. What'd you get for being quiet? Thankfully, the pork choppers entered the lounge and broke up the conversation. Although, I don't know how thankful any of the other queens were, because James jokingly saying that maybe they weren't funny and Tempest sharing that she thought the editing was very kind to all of them may not have been what any of them wanted to hear. But then, Tempest changed gears and told them that they were all top-shelf drag queens now that they'd been on Drag Race, and no one could take that from them. Here's to Tempest, that old goat. When the rest of the queens entered the lounge, Jasmine admitted that she was in the bottom. So did Orion, who seemed thrown by how she was edited. Apparently, she didn't know how to work with a storyboard. Orion also shared that the judges liked her runway. It just didn't say spring. No, it said, "Do you want a..." Elsie was very happy to say that she thought she was in the top, and so did Bosco. Deja wondered if this might mean that there would be a double win this week. God bless Daya, but that's when she made it all about herself again, and clearly the rest of the queens were over it. Georges was another queen who was worried she was going to be in the bottom, which clearly was a worry for Orion and Jasmine, because if she was, they'd have to lip sync against her, and well, that little Georges turns it out. Then the queens talked about Cornbread's early exit and the impact it had on them. Deja bullied Jasmine into admitting that Cornbread picking on her for talking too much was a good thing. Willow was clearly emotional over Cornbread leaving because, well, they'd grown very close in a short time, but Carrie was the one who surprised me. She admitted that it can take a while for her to open up around strangers. So when she saw Cornbread in the workroom that first day, she knew everything was going to be okay. It's a hard thing to say goodbye to such a big personality because win, lose, or draw, everyone feels that absence. Here's to Cornbread. God bless her. And then it was time for the queens to give each other one more pep talk, and they headed back to the runway. Back on the main stage, Rue took no time at all to tell Orion that she was in the bottom. Bosco was this week's winner, and, well, she was beyond thrilled. And the other queen joining Orion in the bottom, well, it was Georges, much to Jasmine's relief. This week, the queens would be lip-syncing to Ava Max's My Head, My Heart. Who else was worried for Orion? She was just thumbing Georges' arm on the Untucked sofa last week, and now they were throwing down. Not only did Georges leave Orion in the dust, but I can't believe how tall Georges looks when she's dancing. Then Orion took off her shoes. And for me, it was over. Who else thinks that they should just stop the music the minute that happens? Just me? Needless to say, Georges chanted, and it was time for Orion to unwrap her chocolate to see if she had the gold bar. She didn't. And Orion had to sashay away. Again. Bless. There were two things that happened in Untucked this week that I want to also share. They showed poor Cornbread packing up and unwrapping her chocolate bar to prove that it was indeed chocolate. And one of the notes that Orion got from the queens as she was packing up was from Georges, who admitted to having a crush on her. See? Serious arm thumbing. I knew something was going on. So, what do you think? Did the right queen go home? Were the right queens in the bottom? How do you feel about Cornbread's early exit? All we can do is tune in next week to see how it all goes down, and when you're done, you come on back and you see me so you and I can compare notes. Until then, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and check out the link in the description box to become a Fingerdoo, a Patreoner, or to get yourself some Wilma merch on my Redbubble store. While you're down there, don't forget to leave a comment because I answer everyone. I'm so lonely. Until next week, miss me! Mwah! Seriously, I'm still just stunned that Cornbread laughed. God bless her. I'm not saying she faked an ankle injury, but you could tell there were issues with her. She was struggling some demons there those first couple of weeks, and it wasn't getting any better. And I think when you start to get into that mental headspace, you can sabotage yourself by tripping or hurting yourself with a stumble or a fall. So either way, I'm just so sorry. For Georges' sake, I hope that is the end of her having to write or rhyme. I also hope diabetes stops this downward spiral she's on. She's starting to let things bother her that I think aren't important. Certainly not as important as winning a challenge. But this is such a good season. I'm just going to say every queen on the season this season is good. They're just all so polished and spectacular. Okay, well, maybe not a rhyme. No offense.